Hello, everyone. My name is Bruno Capuano. Welcome to another session for the Summer of MAUI, Summer of NET. We are going to do a lot of amazing things today. And before we start, as usual, let's review quickly our code of conduct and a couple of other things that I really like to do. So first of all, code of conduct. This is common sense. We are here to learn. We are here to have a good time. So let's try to be respectful and welcoming with each other. And hey, this is going to be kind of fun. So let's take the best of the session. And also, super important, this video is going to be recorded. So it's going to be available in our Reactor channel in 24, 48 hours, 1 or 2 days. And if you want to contact with us, we are taking a look at the chat. Today, I am not in my usual place. I am in the middle of the mountains in the northern Canada. So please take some be patient with me. I will do my best to try to have my comments here and try to respond there. If you want to let us know where you are joining, that's going to be great also. And I am super happy because one more time, in the third week, we are going to start here, and I am going to bring my friend Luis here. Hey, Luis, how are you?
Hey, Bruno, I'm doing great. And well, welcome everyone. Happy to see you one more week.
Yes, we are here, and hey, it's amazing. Started 15, 16 days ago. Hey, we are already going to talk about model, view, model, commands, ups, command down. I know that you like these kind of things. I am old school. I double click in the button and write my code in the code behind, kind of old school. But hey, MVVM is also a super amazing one. And by the way, I always forget about this. I said my name is Bruno Capuano. I work in Microsoft. I work as a cloud advocate, leading an APP dev team. I am super happy to have friends like Luis, a super amazing MVP that really rock this topic. But yes, that's a formal introduction. Luis, do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay, yeah, sure. So my name is Luis. I am a Microsoft MVP in AI developer technologies and also Azure. I am from Mexico, but I am living in Czech Republic because of my studies. I also work here as a lecturer, and well, mostly, um, let's say during my free time, I like to learn to practice .NET. When I have the opportunity, I travel like abroad, across Europe, or maybe going back home to visit family and so. And well, it's all about having fun, I guess.
Awesome. And hey, I see people from Scotland, California, Czech Republic also, Redmond,
Yes.
Central Kentucky, Belgium. Hey, that's super cool. Thanks for joining us. And hey, Luis, if you are okay, I will share your screen
Yeah,
and we
sure.
can start. There they are. Thanks.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining. We have quite a lot of people joining from different parts of the world. So today, our journey brings us to the MVVM pattern. Usually, yeah, as Bruno mentioned, when we create an application, we have buttons, we have controls, we have a lot of code, and yeah, in .NET world, we have even handlers that we can use to, let's say, do something when the user interacts with the application. For example, when they click on a button, show some message, or move to the next page, and so. However, sometimes we might need to uh, reuse some code in order to not to write it again. And well, yeah, there are different architectures, there are different kind of patterns that we can follow in order to improve our code and also, yeah, avoid duplicating the code. So yeah, it is good that we learn about styles, about how to start with a .NET MAUI application, and similar to Xamarin, we can also implement this pattern that is typical in, let's say, SAML-based applications such as WPF, Xamarin, of course, and also .NET MAUI. Although in .NET MAUI there is a way to simplify the MVVM implementation rather than how it was in Xamarin, but I will show you in a minute. Okay, so let's look at the overview of the model view model, or MVVM. Basically, yes, we learn, or we know that we have pages, we have views, we have controls, we have a user interface. Typically, when we write our application, we use something so the user can see information. So basically, the views, the pages, the controls are used to display information. Sometimes there will be some controls that the user can interact with. So that means there will be some events, maybe clicking on a button or navigating to another page, maybe entering some information in an input, in a text area. So what to do with this interaction? What will happen when the user clicks on the button? What will happen when the user enters some information in the in some edit text, for example? Yeah, what data we are going to, for example, display, or we are going to save somewhere else, maybe in some, send it to some REST API, store it locally, and so on. So to control that, let's say that interaction, what we are going to do with what the user did, we have view models, and of course we also have underlying layer, which is a model, basically the structure of the information. We will go through these elements, or you will see them in code later. But the idea is that we are going to organize our code in different, could be folders or even projects. I have seen some implementations where, for example, the model, rather than having everything in a single project, the model could be a class library, right? And we have all our classes there. Then another class library could be a view model. And of course, we add a reference, a project reference in our main solution to these two class library projects. So yeah, you can have it, or you can also see it with the data layer structure, or business application layer, right? The DAL, or even the services layer. But yeah, there are different ways to do it. In my case, for this, let's say, example, I'm going to show it with folders. But if you want to use different projects, yeah, you can do it. Okay. So yeah, essentially, a .NET MAUI application consists of one or more pages, each of which typically contains multiple user interface objects called views. One of the main tasks of the application is to keep these views in sync and keep track of the different values or selections that they represent. Views are often representing values from these underlying data sources, and the users manipulate these views to change the data. To to actually link the user interface with this intermediate layer, which are the view models, we have a technique called known as data binding, right? And with data binding, we can link, we can bind properties and also events. So this is one quick example. Let's say that we have a class such as user view model, right, which implements an important interface, iNotify property change. This one can be associated to a property or maybe a comment, and when the view changes, like for example, the user enters some information, yes, that, let's say, change in some text control will update an internal property. or vice versa. If we modify the value of this public property, that, let's say, new value, that new information of the first name will be displayed here, right? Because as you can see, this is the view, of course, this is SAML, right? Well, you can see that this label on its text property has the first name property bound, right, to this. Of course, there is also more information, or there are some missing, let's say, points, like how we link the view with the view model, but I will explain that later. It is with the binding context, right? So the idea is that without, let's say, a button, or without an event handler, we can, let's say, reflect the changes either on the property, internal property. This property belongs to this class, user view model, right? Or we can update also the view, or even both, right? So yeah, that is also possible. You will see how it works. So this is for, let's say, properties. This is for data. If we change the value in the first name property, we will also see it, let's say, in some label, for example, or vice versa. But what about actions? Well, for actions, yes, typically we create events or event handlers. You know, the clicked on a button, item selected on some list view, for example, but we need to write code in the code behind section. And typically we need to duplicate maybe code. So for that, in MVVM, we have commands. We have a way to also define, let's say, a method in the view model class. That method is bound or set in an iCommand property. And then this iCommand property is set to the command property of some UI element, for example, a button, right? So when the user clicks on the button, the method that is associated to the command will be executed. Well, not a method, but actually a delegate, but in essence, it is quite the same. So with data binding, we can automate some tasks. We can avoid creating event handlers. And as you can see, it is basically a combination of some SAML and also C# code. We can do everything actually with C# code, but I think it is easier to do it this way. You will see in some minutes how we actually connect this. And of course, we are also practicing this in our workshop later, right? So here we talk about some technique known as data binding. Data binding is the technique of linking properties of two objects so that when one property changes, this is automatically reflected in the other property. Okay, so yeah, this is like the full definition. The .NET MAUI data binding links a pair of properties between two objects. These two objects can be in different classes or even in the same class, right? At least one of them is typically a user interface object, like a button, like a text, label, entry, right? And yeah, maybe in some cases, one of them affects the other one, or vice versa, or even in both, let's say, ways. So we might have one destination and one source. The source is the object that the data binding refers to, and the destination is where the data binding is applied, like what we want to change according to the modification on the source. And we can define, let's say, the flow or the changes in different, let's say, ways. The typical one is from the source to the destination, but it is also possible to do it the other way, or even, as I said, in both directions.
Luis, one
Yes?
question. You're probably
Yes.
going to say this later, but this is
It's okay.
kind of, I think it's cool to ask. So by default, MAUI has support for a pattern like MVVM, or we need to use, because I used to do MVVM toolkits in WPF, but this is all embedded by default?
Yes, actually, with thanks to .NET, we have access to the iNotify property change. So this is the one that can help us to set up MVVM without needing any external library. However, with the community toolkit, MVVM, actually, we can simplify this. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, that's the question, because I think I see something here and there, but it's also nice to review that. Yes, by default, we can write a lot of code, but if we want to have an easier life, we can rely on some libraries to do this. Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Exactly. Yes, thank you. And thank you actually for bringing this, because I forgot to mention that in the view model, we need to define, we need to, let's say, implement the iNotify property change, and that is typically done with a property change event handler and this on property change, let's say, method. But we need to do this in all our view models. Or, of course, we can also create a base view model. Actually, I typically do that. We create a base class, and then all our view models inherit from there, and no need to, of course, duplicate. So yeah, this is one way to do it. But as I said, with the toolkit, it is even simpler than that. And we will see in a minute. Awesome. So yes, now we continue right here in the data binding. Okay, so this is one example of how we can actually, let's say, bind different properties. Well, actually, not this slide, but the next one. Let's say that we have one requirement. We have a label, we have a label, we have a slider, and we want to, let's say, modify the rotation of the label according to the value of this slider. So basically, when the user, let's say, with the finger, changes the value of this slider, we would like to change the rotation, the angle of this label. Typically, we would need to use the value change event from the slider, and then read the value and set the rotation property of the label. Actually, we also need references to those objects, to those UI elements. Typically, we do that with the xname property or extension. So we need an event handler. However, we can solve this actually without writing any C# code, thanks to data binding. And here you have how we are going to do it. So, we still write the name of one of the controls, in this case, the slider. Then you can observe how in the label we add two new members, binding context and rotation. The binding context, it is basically where we have the source, where we have the object that will change one of the properties. So here we say, okay, the label has a, let's say, reference or a context from the slider. So we use this, let's say, full definition, X reference name slider. So this slider is this identifier. Then, once we set up the binding context, we can associate, we can link the value. Value would be the property of the slider. The slider has a property value, the current value. And this value is bound to the rotation property of the label. And as soon as we change the value of the slider, the rotation of the label will automatically change. So yeah, this is what will happen, and without having to write any C# code, as I said. So yeah, this is still not MVVM, but it is the foundation, because actually for MVVM we need to learn, let's say, or know about binding, data binding. So yeah, that's the idea. When we change the property value of something, additionally something else reflects the change. So yeah, that's the idea behind this. Not sure if there are any questions. This is, let's say, our first breakpoint.
No, we don't have questions. Yes, a couple of people mentioned, Reaper here mentioned that he was using the MVV toolkit, MVVM,
Cool.
sorry, toolkit. I lost an NB there, which is kind of amazing. I used Laurent. Laurent was the MVVM toolkit in WPS, WPF a long time ago. And I just share a personal experience there that first time that you see a pattern like this, it seems a lot. It seems like something big. It seems like, oh my God, what do I need to do this? I double click in the button
Yes.
and I have my code there. But in the long run, at the end, it makes sense. It really makes a lot of sense. Help us also to have a cleaner code, I will say. Your code is going to be organized in a better way. So there is a lot of value here. And if you are not using a pattern like this one, please give it a try, because again, it seems a lot, but it's amazing. So yeah, sorry.
It is a lifesaver. Yes, even, yeah, same as you. My first, let's say, examples or some code that I wrote for a company, I did not use any patterns. So sometimes I have to like copy some code, paste it in this new file. Then if I change some code in the first class, I need to remember, oh yes, I also copied, and I have to modify it or repeat that changes in this other class. And it is hard to actually control how many copies of one class you have. And yeah, it's actually a good, let's say, time investment to learn some pattern. There is MVVM, there is MVU, there is, I think, MVP, model view present, something like that.
Yes.
Model
That's the old one. That's the first one I use.
yeah. I did not even remember the P. And yeah, so but it is worthy. It is worthy to learn because again, it's a lifesaver. Okay.
And again, if you are doing a hello world, that's fine. Don't do anything if you don't want. But if you have something that is going to grow, that you have the feeling that the code base is going to be big, and you need to share, also work with colleagues and working in a team or something like this helps. That's it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Back to you. Sorry, Liz.
No, it's cool. It's good. All right. So now with that, we can go to MVVM. How do we actually implement MVVM? How do we connect all the dots? So first of all, we need models. Models are basically classes, but these classes should or must expose public properties. They can be read-only, yes, but you need a property. You know, there is variable, there is property. The property defines at least a getter and optionally a setter. All right, so here you have some examples, some string properties, some integer, doubles. Yeah, they can be different types. So that's it. And of course, your class must be also publicly available in your project, let's say. So this is simple step. The second one is implement a view model, there are 2 or 3 parts, let's say. The first part is, okay, we have the view model. It has to implement the iNotify property change, which is something that we already mentioned. So this is just to make it clear that we need it. As I said, instead of doing this, let's say repeating this code for every one of your view models, create a base class and then all your view models inherit from this base class. And this class, of course, this is the one that implements the iNotify property change. Actually, if I show you some example here, this is the application that I'm going to show for the demo in a minute. You can observe that I have a base view model class, and this one, this is the one that implements the interface with the property change event handler, the also on property change, and this set property. You will see actually how this reduces the code a bit. And here, feel free to, if you actually use, let's say, this base class technique, feel free to also add any other property that all your view models also can use. For example, it is quite common in mobile applications that when the user is waiting for some data to be loaded to, let's say, display some animation. So we can create a basic isVC property, and depending if it is true or false, it will display the animation. Of course, while it is waiting, it will be true, but once the data is loaded, we can dismiss it, we can set it to false, and yeah, the animation will not be displayed anymore. But again, use whatever you want. So, and then we have some view model, and this view model inherits from the base view model. Okay, good. So this is, let's say, the part 1. Second part is in your view model, define all your public properties, right? Which could be read-only or full ones, right? But please notice that in the setter, right, we need to invoke the onProperty change. This actually means that, of course, in the set, it means that the value of the public member has changed. So we need to notify anything that is bound to this property that there was a change in the value. And we invoke, let's say, that notification with the onProperty change method or element that is also part of the view model. Depending on how you implement it, you can do it. For example, okay, I didn't do it here, but I did it in the base model. Yes, here you can observe that I have this isVC private member and the public one, and in the setter I invoke the set property method. This set property, which is generic actually, it has some code, but essentially it invokes the onProperty change. You can see here that we have onProperty change and the name of the public element, but instead of doing this for each of them, we can also use generics, right? And we can pass the property name as a parameter, so we don't need to repeat repeat actually the property names.
Sorry, Luis. Eric was literally asking about this. He said that we missed something, or you implement set property manually, or are we using MVVM toolkit? So you make it manually.
Yeah, right now it is manually, but later I will show you the code to reduce everything with the toolkit. Yes, but this is, let's say, the manual, the typical way, the fundamental part. Actually, this is also, let's say, something quite important. In Xamarin, we had a lot of NuGet packages or frameworks, you can say, MVVM frameworks. There was, okay, if I remember correctly, MVVM Lite, there was Prism, and other options. Typically, when I, let's say, teach about Xamarin, I teach, let's say, without any framework. because I consider that it is important to learn how the pattern works. Once you understand, okay, how everything, models, views are connected, you can use any MVVM framework that you like if you want to, or you can stick, let's say, to the basic one. Because if you directly, let's say, go to learn Prism or use MVVM Live or I don't know, anything else, and let's say if you don't understand something and maybe ask for support but it is a question related to MVVM, probably they will not have time to help you, because one thing is to know about the, let's say, what is MVVM, how it works, and the other part is just purely the framework, right? So I think it is important to learn the basics. Then feel free to use any framework that you like. For example, I remember that when .NET MAUI was, let's say, being implemented, or it was quite new, a lot of people was a bit stuck because all the time they were using, let's say, Prism or other MVVM frameworks in Xamarin. And once they need to migrate some project from Xamarin to .NET MAUI, they cannot do a lot of things because there was this dependency on these MVVM frameworks, which at that time were not ported or migrated yet to .NET MAUI. So, of course, when you use any NuGet package, there is a dependency, or you are creating a dependency. So it's up to you, right? How many dependencies? Of course, the less, the better. But of course, some NuGet packages are really great to do a lot of things. So yeah, it all depends. But yeah, I think it is important to at least learn the basics. Then.
Yes, and sorry to interrupt again, but
It's okay,
Reaper, I will say Reaper. I hope it's fine. But Reaper says here that yes, there are a lot of MVVM NuGet packages over the years. It's confusing, and I completely agree. There are some stuff sometimes in the NuGet library, in the NuGet package library, that it gets messy. And the MVVM, even if I don't have a lot of experience here, but I know that there is a lot of those. So there are popular ones, there are good ones. I'm sure that there are another ones that are not very good ones. But yes, for a beginner, it's confusing. That's why we hope this helps. It helps. Okay, this is one way that you can go and it works. Sorry, that's a note.
No, it's okay. Yeah. And the idea is that once we learn this, we see how to simplify, and you will see the difference. Okay, so let's say you do this for your view model, right? You define your public properties, you call the onProperty change or the set property implementation that I showed, and after that, yes, you can bind the view, but of course there is something also missing. But this, let's say, part I already kind of mentioned, that in the view, let's say some label, you can bind the public member. But actually, how this is connected? You can see that, for example, I have in my view model, okay, yeah, view model, I have this property, which is countries, okay? This countries is an observable collection. It is read-only. And this one is bound in country list view. I have, I have here a collection view, I have item source, and I have binding with countries. But actually, how does it detect, let's say, this property from my view model with the item source here? The trick is the binding context. If you remember, in the example that I shared at the beginning, when we, let's say, yeah, when we talk about the slider and the label, I said that we added a couple of properties. Oh, sorry, this one. We added the binding context and the property that we want to, let's say, connect. So the trick is the binding context. And in this case, the content page has a binding context. Actually, everything has a binding context. So in the binding context, we are specifying it here in SAML, but we can also do it in C#, of course. So in the binding context, we create an instance of a country list view model, which is, of course, my view model class, right? So after we do that, we can bind any properties from the binding context. And you can notice that this one is BC, comes from the base view model, and this one is directly in country list. So the idea here is that also I am binding a command, because when the application runs, I define the onAppearing, let's say, method, which of course is executed when this, let's say, page is displayed on the device. And here we are invoking a command. This load countries command is also part of the country list view model. You can observe load countries command, and this one in the constructor is set to execute the load data method, right? Here in the constructor, we start the countries and also the command, and the command invokes the load data. I mean, invokes when it is executed, because this is just some definition, that's it. But actually, when we execute it, that is when the page appears, it will execute this code, which essentially calls some service and displays a list of countries and also a flag for each of the countries. So yeah, essentially that. And for this view, the code behind is only, let's say, this. There is nothing else. The code behind is as simple as this, but of course, let's say the bigger part is the view model. And yeah, this is the idea. This is the result that we can see some flags, some let's say information that is here, let's say, obtained actually in a service layer, because this get countries method is the one that actually invokes, let's say, some REST API and serializes the information. So yeah, that's basically how we connect everything. I will continue. Just a second. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we essentially connect commands and also the different let's say elements from our view. Maybe some controls don't have a command property, because a button has a command. An entry has also a command when the text changes, but label, image, they don't have a command, because typically the user will not interact with these controls. However, there is all controls in .NET MAUI have a gesture recognizers collection, and there you can add tap gesture recognizer. For example, there is also double tap and others, right? So for this, for example, in case of an image, when the user clicks on the image, we can also bind some action, some command, for example. And here we have command binding something, and it is executed. And we can also send some parameter. So yeah, essentially this is how we kind of connect everything. We can also parameterize the command, like command of string if we want to send something else. So yeah, that's the basic idea. And the command is basically an interface. It is the I command, and the command can be, let's say, deactivated, right? So we can set some let's say can execute property to false, for example, if we want to avoid it. Maybe we are disabling some button until some, let's say, conditions are met, so the command is not executed. But once everything is fulfilled, yeah, we can continue with the execution of the command.
I know that we are going to the demo now, but we have a question, a nice one from Eric here about if we have an asynchronous version of the command invoke. Let me put this one here. So Reaper here say that we have an iasync, an interface iasync command. I think yes, I can't remember, but by default it should be async.
Yeah, I think so. Let me check very quickly. Countries, execute. I kind of remember that. I saw it, but even if no, when you call the execute, my belief is that because this method, let's say, is defined as async, for example, in the constructor, just a second here. Yeah, it should be executed in an asynchronous context.
Yes, we can get more if you want for the next session, but I will say yes, because as you mentioned, it's there in going with the weight in async mode. But yes.
Yeah. I think so too. I need to kind of check if this could be like implemented in different way, but from what I have seen, yes, I mean, if I bind to some, let's say, loading, yeah, it actually waits until the information is displayed, and of course, the user can also continue interacting with the application. Okay, thank you. Good question. So yeah, essentially, let's say that. But also something important is that in a .NET MAUI application, for this, let's say, to work, maybe you notice, right, that we set a binding context. There is another way to actually simplify this. Like we don't need to. I mean, sometimes we can do it here on the SAML, or we can also create the instance here in the C# code. However, we can actually use dependency injections to even do it, let's say, better. For that, we define, let's say, we register some dependencies in the MAUI program class. So we have add transient or add singleton. Sometimes we need, let's say, some view model to only be instanced once across the life cycle of the application. Let's say we want just one instance, one general instance for it. So the .NET MAUI already has, let's say, a built-in dependency injection member. So we can call or invoke this method add singleton, and then let's say use the, for example, main page view model. If we know that there will be only one instance, or we require only one instance of the view model. For example, a details page or a details view model needs, let's say, the instance should be created every time. So for that, we use add transient. Again, we have singleton and we have transient. If we only need one instance of the class at any time, we use singleton. If we need to actually create an instance every time that we, let's say, display some page or invoke some view model, we use add transient. And this is, let's say, like part for the, let's say, simplification of the code, because in this case, you can see in the SAML here, this is effectively creating an instance every time that I invoke the page. But with the dependency injection, if I do this, if I add these two, then I can actually pass, let's say, the reference in the constructor. So you can observe that there is no new something. It is automatically created when we need it, right? So here we have, or we are passing in the constructor a view model reference, and we of course set it to the binding context. So yeah, that's let's say one of the differences between Xamarin, because in Xamarin we have to like implement our own dependency injection or even use a NuGet package. So this is something that we can, this is quite common in ASP.NET Core work. If you have done some backend, some frontend, there is dependency injection support that you define in your, I forgot the name, startup, I think, file. And yeah, it is quite easy to use it in controllers or some other elements or your services. So now this is also available here, let's say. And yeah, okay, we have like quite short time, but I will show you, for example, for the refreshing recipes, let me open probably this one, yes. How we can actually simplify this. Because in this case, you can observe that I am, for example, in the view models, the definition is kind of different. Here I have a base view model, right? If you remember, we implemented the iNotify property change, and there was a lot of like weird code for the set property, for property change, and so on. There is a NuGet package, which is the Community Toolkit MVVM, which is based on MVVM Lite, if I remember correctly. This one reduces all the code that we need to write for the view model implementation. Well, actually everything. So, for example, now with very few lines of code, we can define that this class already supports not to notify changes in the properties. Take a look at how is it here. This is the base view model, right? And this is the other definition, right? Like it was like 34 lines of code because we need to write the event, the on property change. But now, because this, let's say, NuGet package, for this case, we are using an observable object, or we say with this base view model inherits from observable object. This one already has, let's say, that code. So it simplifies everything. However, there are some kind of requirements. The first requirement is that the class must be defined as partial. We need to actually create a partial class, not a full class. Why is that? Because this community toolkit auto-generates a lot of code. And for example, you can also observe another subtle difference. Our members are not properties. We actually define a private member. You can see bool is busy, but we actually add at least this attribute, observable property. If we do that, then this is busy property. Please notice the difference. This is busy. This is a variable. This is private. This is lowercase I, but this is capital I. But you might wonder, where is it? Because I have not created it, and I cannot use a variable that is not defined before. If I control click on it, because that will take me to the source, you will observe that there is an auto-generated class where this isBusy property has been created, and it belongs to the partial class base view model. As I said, it auto-generates a lot of code, and this is a lot of weird code, but it gets the work done, and you don't worry, let's say, about it. All you need to do is to define a class, but quite simple. So, and we also define, for example, observable property title. So what do you think?
Sorry, I was on mute. I like it. I mean, it's time saving. Everything that is time saving, it's great. Eric asked this if this affect and we have better performance with this.
Yes, definitely. It let's say is based on best practices, and it goes, let's say, directly to the let's say implementation of MVVM. It adds, as you can see, just a second. Yeah, it adds like some validations. Even it handles change, which maybe we don't typically kind of use, but sometimes it is important to like know what happened before it changed, what happened after it changed. So
yes,
yeah, like this would be the full implementation.
Yes, it does the full state machine to see if it's BC, it's not BC, then change it, not change it, then go back to BC to yes, make the full state. So not only better performance, I will say it's a better code, and it's all there for
like complete.
free.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and for example, I have the detailed view model, again, very simple code. And what happens with collection? For example, this one displays a list, right, of recipes. So here again, I have my public observable collection recipes. Oh, this is also important. I told you that you define now, let's say, variables, like you have recipe, but it has the observable property attribute. One rule I said is the class should be partial. Second rule, your variables should be with lowercase, because if you do it with capital, you will receive some error because the auto-generated code uses capital case. Well, in the end, this is some kind of best practice or standard. Let's say you know lowercase, camel case, this implementation. So better to use this. But if you are creating read-only properties, you cannot use this observable property attribute. You actually need to define it as you typically do it without the framework. So in this case, yeah, I have recipes, but this is also another difference. Do you remember commands? I said that in commands, we have to first define, just a second, an iCommand property. Okay, here we have public iCommand, blah, blah, blah. Second, we need to define a method like load data. And finally, we connect the method and the command, for example, here in the constructor, correct? Well, so we need like 3 elements. With the toolkit, we can do it in just one step. Well, let's say 1.5. We define the methods with, of course, all the functionality, and we, let's say, decorate the method with the relay command attribute. That's it. With that, it will create, in this case, get recipes command, iCommand, like internally. And how do I know that? Because this, let's say, method or command can be used here. You will see. Here I have get recipes commands, and of course it is returned get recipes command. This async is it's up to you if you want to define the method as get recipes or get recipes async. Async, let's say, is again just some standard in code, but it adds the command, let's say, suffix. And again, I can get access to the member if I control click here, and this is the generation. Actually, it uses someone mentioned iasync command. Yes, in this case, add iasync relay command, because the command also uses the relay command. So and you can observe that this is basically a getter that is also like instantiated only once. If it is null, it creates the instance. If not, it just reads it, and that's it, right? So yeah, that's also another simplification, and I don't need to define any constructor to set the method with the comment. So for our, let's say, challenge, in this case, well, we didn't do it like step by step this time, but of course the instructions are there. So let's say that now you have your homework, like to do it, or you can join us on Wednesday. We will do it like in Spanish. But yeah, the idea here is that, for example, this button, you can see this get recipes. I will show you this one. There is a button, and when the user clicks on the button, the get recipes command is invoked. And what does it do? Basically, it connects, let's say, to some service to display some information from internet. For some reason, I cannot display the pictures on Android. Maybe they are too, I don't know, heavy. Maybe that's it. Because on Windows it works. So probably I need to use, let's say, shorter images. But anyways, I can fix that later. So the idea here is that you will see, yeah, here are the images. Yeah, maybe my emulator is a bit limited with the network, but here we have picture with the let's say name of the recipe, and of course we have the list. And also, please notice that for this collection, we also bind some command. When the user clicks here on any item, that is, it selects one item, there is a selection change command. This go to details command. We can also go to the, let's say, command. Just a second. Here, go to details. Here, basically, it will navigate to a new view, and it will send as an argument the selected, let's say, recipe. And I will click on the first one, and it will display, of course, the information. This is the view that we created last time, as you can see, with this very nice, fancy style. But now it changes according to the selection in the previous page. And well, yeah, it is now with the MVVM, let's say, implementation. As I said, the step-by-step is available on GitHub on our challenge. So yeah, what do you think?
Hey, super cool. I like it. And we have the link here. We are going to share again the repos if someone wants to follow the step-by-step. So we have it there. And we are on time. So while we are sharing the link here, let me copy the link and share it in the comments. Oh, I can't do it, so and we need to ask Alexia to do it. I will share it here in YouTube directly. Just remember that we have the last session next week. We also have this session again in Spanish on Wednesday. And what is the next topic? The last one?
Yeah, the last topic is local storage. So maybe we want to save this information into some database, or we want to obtain the data from there. And well, Humberto Jaimes, who is a Microsoft MVP and expert in .NET MAUI, will share his knowledge with us about it in English and Spanish.
Yes, and also remember and remind everyone that if you want to catch up, if you want to review and catch up with the stuff that we already talked, you can review all of the series in that link. We are going to make a shorter link for sure. And hey, thanks a lot. This was a usual, amazing. Thanks, Luis. Final reminder that if you want to give us some feedback, please. This is the link of the feedback. This is the event code. We really like to know what we can do better. What else do you want to see and more? Hey, Reaper asked about do a series about creating your own controls with bindable properties. We can do more. I mean, there is a lot of stuff to talk in everything .NET, in everything .NET MAUI. Eric said that this was a lot. Yeah, sorry. Say it was dense, well timed. So yes, it's amazing. I mean, when you start to do stuff, there are plenty of other things that we can do, and hey, we want to also give the time to everyone. I have one question here from Jose. What other type of binding besides compile binding? We will reply that one next week. I want to be sensitive with time with everyone. So the last one is just to invite everyone to join us on Twitter. I'm sorry, with X, formerly known as Twitter, or in our communities in Facebook, YouTube. We have presence everywhere. So, hey, Luis, it's a pleasure. See you on Wednesday, and see everyone if you want next week.
Thank
Bye.
you everyone for joining. Bye bye.